Where were you on New Year's? I had a quiet, understated New Year's Eve with my kids. So quiet that at one point in the evening, I pulled out my phone to scroll through my friends' reflections on social media, just looking for something to do. It being New Year's Eve, there were among the posts memes, lots and lots of memes, all with a similar theme. Goodbye, 2024. I never liked you anyway. No doubt about it, 2024 was a difficult year. And perhaps because of how hard it had been, I expected that along with all of the out with the old memes, to see also a lot of enthusiasm about the in with the new. Perhaps to see more posts like the one I saw around this time last year proclaiming, "Tomorrow is the first blank page of a 365-page book. Write a good one." Instead, as I was scrolling, the next post to appear read, "Here comes 2025. Don't worry, the first 365 days are always the hardest." Which was followed by post after somber post, some of them funny, but most of them utterly devoid of the usual optimism a new year traditionally brings. Posts like, "2025, no thanks," or "I don't want a new year, I'd like an old model, please. 1985 sounds pretty good. Let's do that again." Or this quote, voiced in the voice of a comic character, Charlie Brown. "You know," it said, "I always dread the whole year. Well, this time I'm only gonna dread one day at a time." There was not a lot of optimism in the social media landscape as I scrolled. And as I sat with that, I realized that that actually may be on point. Rabbi Lord Jonathan Sacks famously taught that optimism is not all it's cracked up to be. Optimism, he taught, is the belief that the world is changing for the better. And that's a hard sell in 2025, when New Year's Day brought at least 14 murdered and dozens wounded on Bourbon Street in New Orleans by a terrorist with an ISIS flag hung on his truck, or as millions of Israelis sheltered yet again from yet another Houthi missile attack. And that's just on the global front. My family and I, as the old song goes, spent Hanukkah in Santa Monica, where the shine of the beautiful sights was overshadowed by the human tragedy of homelessness all around. There's so much suffering. And of course, there are too many among us right here in this room who are coming into the new year facing illness or heartbreak in our own homes. The reality of our world today too often belies optimism. So what else is on offer? Rabbi Sacks poignantly noted that no Jew who knows his or her history can be an optimism. Can be an optimist. We have seen too many great civilizations, ancient Egypt, the Roman Empire, medieval Spain, or pre-war Germany, lapse into barbarism and murderous hate. The prophets of Israel, he pointed out, those prophets from that prophet scroll that David so beautifully read, those prophets, they were not optimists. When everyone else felt secure, they saw coming catastrophe. But every one of them, he said, was an agent of hope. What does it mean to be an agent of hope? Is that something just ancient prophets can be, or is it available for each and every one of us? Well, Rabbi Sachs continued that to be an agent of hope is not a matter of seeing the world as we would like it to be and then believing that mere wishing or praying will make it so. God, he said, never promised that the world would get better of its own accord. To be an agent of hope means seeing the world exactly as it is and not giving up the belief that it could be otherwise if we are ready to act with others to make it so. And so, Rabbi Sachs argues that the paradigm of hope that is most helpful to us today is one that actually sets the stage for the events that we read in our Torah portion, Vayigash, today. You see, back when Jacob first heard the false report that Joseph had died, the Torah says, V'yamen lehit nachem. He refused to be comforted. We all know the end of that story. Joseph is not dead, and Jacob reunites with him again, but at the time, Jacob could not know that that would happen. His loss, though, the sense of brokenness in his world activated his own awareness that all was not right. And in that activation, it becomes a hidden pivot to the entire story, because Jacob's suffering teaches his sons the cost of suffering that is beyond themselves, beyond what they can see and experience in their own little circle. And they therefore learn empathy, which enables Judah's taking responsibility for his brother's actions and for his father's pain that happens today. And it is in turn the action that moves Joseph to reveal himself. He can reveal himself into that space because he knows it is a space where his brothers are now alive to the suffering that is contained in the world around them and ready to do what they need to do to respond. Jacob, Rabbi Sachs concludes, refused to be comforted. And so too, while we live in a world that is scarred by violence, poverty, and injustice, he says, must we. What might it look like to follow in Jacob's footsteps in that way, to refuse to be comforted? Rabbi Sachs argues that hope and tragedy do not differ about facts, but about our interpretation and expectation. Those who hope strive. Those who are disillusioned accept. And in that respect, they are self-fulfilling prophecies. My friends, do we want to be those who accept the world that we see around us, who believe coming into this new year, oi, there's nothing else we can do? Or would we want to follow the path that Rabbi Sachs lays forward in Jacob's example to make hope synonymous with our striving? Now, that sounds like a really tall order, because the answer is obvious. All of us would want to be among those who strive, but frankly, friends, that's exhausting. And it doesn't always make a difference or feel that it does. And so there is one very important piece of Torah that also comes from last week, that comes from Hanukkah, that is super super helpful to us. It's the wisdom of the Shamash, which we lit our Hanukkah candles all week last week. You know, I don't know about you, but I find the days immediately after Hanukkah a bit jarring. We've lit these candles against the darkness and the custom of Hillel, adding one more each night, a growing glow to beat back the gloom of the season, and then suddenly it stops. All done, light gone. And I inevitably feel, but don't we still need that light to continue to grow right now? We still need it more than ever. And the answer that I've always been given to this dilemma is, no, you've imbibed the light and now you've got it. You're good to go. Hanukkah did its trick. Yay. But this past Shabbat, my family and I had moved to a hotel in the Jewish neighborhood of LA that is affectionately called the Hood. I can't even count the number of shuls that we walked past in order to get to the shul that we attended that morning. And you could tell that it was a long walk because the entire walk was a series of encountering passerbys. We first started Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. And then we went a little while and you could see the neighborhood changing because we got Good Shabbos, Good Shabbos. And then at a certain point, it was just Shabbos, Shabbos. It was a long walk, and it was beautiful. And the shul that we attended was glorious, but when it came around time for mincha time, I decided to slip into the shul that was directly across the street, where before Havdalah and candle lighting, an Israeli woman sitting next to me shared that her son is currently serving in Gaza. I asked her how she's holding up and how she's feeling in this moment. And she said, I can't change the darkness that he is facing, but tonight I can do something to lift a little light. And I came over to talk to you because I saw that you're alone, and I saw that you're not a regular here. And I wanted to see if I could do something to make your experience a little bit better. When I do that, that helps me feel whole. And she encouraged me as Havdalah came to breathe deeply in the bisamim spices and to let the light reflect off of my fingernails. Because she said, in that reflection is an inspiration to look at my hands all week long and ask a question: where is the light? And if it's not there, then the question becomes, what will I do now to bring it back? When our hands are idle, she explained, when they are dedicated to just what benefits us, they are limited. But when we look at our nails and we miss the light that we saw reflected on Hanukkah or at the end of each and every Shabbat, that longing itself can inspire us to become a living shamash, a living agent of hope, seeking out new tasks to bring new light. My friends, Hanukkah has concluded and a new year has arrived. And our question is, what will we do to bring back the missing light? We think that it needs to be big, but sometimes it can be very, very small. The kind of hope that is calling to us now is the mission that has been the eternal mission of the Jewish people, to be a shamash all year long, to reach our hands towards opportunities to create new light. This week, a friend of mine reposted a comment from author John Perricone. He told the story that a few years back he invited a Buddhist monk to speak to his senior elective class, and he wrote that, quite interestingly, this monk, as he entered into the room, didn't say a word. He just walked to the board and wrote this: "Everyone wants to save the world, but no one wants to help mom do the dishes." John shared that there everyone burst out laughing until the monk continued. "Statistically," he said, "it's highly unlikely that any of you will have an opportunity to run into a burning orphanage and rescue an infant, but the smallest gesture of kindness, a warm smile, holding the door for the person behind you, shoveling the driveway of an elderly person next door, if you do that, you have committed an act of immeasurable profundity." He concluded, "That is my hope for you in the new year, that by the smallest act of kindness, you will save another's world." That is our task too. May each of us rise now to be an agent of hope, to be a living shamash. And in that way, may 2025 be a happy new year. Shabbat shalom.